between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FBC Radio Live. It's Happy Festivus Eve, my friends. Festivus tomorrow, Christmas Eve on Friday, Christmas Day on Saturday. Although, John, it might not be a wonderful Christmas for you because I think maybe the Packers might get got on Saturday. You never know. They might be feeling themselves a little bit too much. Number one team in the NFC. Maybe Minnesota catches them off guard a little bit. What do you think? You think they're ready for this
Cleveland.
one? Or Cleveland.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Aaron Andrews, Christmas in Green Bay, what can be better than that? So, they play so well at Lambeau Field, and Cleveland's hanging on barely to a potential playoff spot, and who the hell's playing quarterback for the Browns? I think the Packers will be fine on Saturday. Some of those games where they're, kind of off schedule, they do favor the home team because Green Bay doesn't have to travel.
Mm-hmm.
They can still kind of, do their routine and be ready to go on Saturday, where Cleveland's coming off a Monday night game, extra short week, and then they got to travel. Not that Cleveland to Green Bay is exactly a long trip, but I think the Packers will be just fine, and he'll shred that defense, I believe, and they'll have, Baker Mayfield spinning around. But we'll see a lot of Progressive and State Farm commercials, right? I mean, I would think that they bought up all the ad space for the game.
I was going to say I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a insurance company commercial off that entire thing. No, I think at home the Packers should win this game. Although again, I mean it's the way this NFL season has gone. You never really know. And look, I think we both agree. We agree. I mean, I know it's all over the map out there with everyone's opinion from Jonathan Taylor to Cooper Kupp, but the two quarterbacks, the two old guys, are the two front runners for the MVP right now. It's coming down to really the last minute. I mean, I mentioned the other day Matt Stafford's name, kind of get thrown in the mix, and perhaps he will. He certainly has the stats to kind of put himself in the mix. But I think we both agree the two guys that have been really kind of in the forefront of this race are at the top of it. Obviously, I still think Brady has the inside track, although that inside track is getting narrower and narrower. And I feel like I'm just stumbling over those words right now. But it has felt like that over the last few weeks. So the gap is certainly either non-existent or very thin, in my opinion. I just look at it. I'm like, okay, there's 3 games left. He has a relatively easy stretch of 3 games. Now, again, the injuries that the Bucs, and we'll get to that in a minute because it seems like they've lost everyone from Sunday. But their stretch of games, I think it's going to be good enough for Tom to put up some pretty solid numbers. And I think at the end of the day, it's just this recency bias, this knee-jerk reaction that we're seeing on social media and we see every single day, I don't think is going to be much of an impact on the voters, because at the end of the day, a modest 3 games from Tom Brady, he's throwing over 5,000 yards at the end of the day and over 46 touchdowns. So, to me, it's in that to me, I think is by far enough to lock up the MVP for him. Now, again, Aaron Rodgers might end up getting a handful of votes, but at the end of the day, he's had a fine season. But I think far too many people are putting way too much stock into what they've seen and ignoring what happened. Because, well, guess what? The Saints gave Tom Brady some trouble. They also gave Aaron Rodgers a lot of trouble too. And you can make the argument that certainly statistically, he had a worse game than Tom Brady. So this idea that Tom could go.
Well, they both suck. I mean, they both suck.
Well, that's exactly.
No question about that. I mean, if you want to debate who had a worse game, that's up for debate. I mean, one guy got shut out, one guy scored 3 points. They were both awful. And give New Orleans credit. They've got a really good defense. It's not the New Orleans defense bottled up the Patriots when they play. New Orleans, as I've said, is the strangest team in football. They got 2 wins over Tampa, win over Green Bay, a win over the Patriots. They almost beat Tennessee on the road. I mean, they're like the weirdest team, but then they lost the Giants at home. So that they kind of sum up the NFL season, right? Ian, the Saints.
Oh, yeah.
like on any given Sunday they can beat the best team or lose the worst team. So
yeah, exactly.
it's
So
razor close at this point.
So at the end of the day, to me, I mean, it's a wash between that game. But the problem is, the discourse we see on Twitter. I mean, we saw people, folks over at PFF who I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just this. I don't know what it is, but they seem to be very pushing against Brady the last few weeks because like we went from having him be the front runner, walking off the field in an overtime victory against the number one pass defense in the league and the Buffalo Bills just a week ago to being completely out of the race behind guys like obviously Rodgers, but behind guys like Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. And I'm like, good God, what are we doing here? Like there's no consistency with this discussion. And to me, the motive and the agenda is very clear. I mean, they're sick of Tom. I mean, let's face it. Like we've been hearing it for the last 2 months. Like, I mean, how many different players have entered the MVP race only to get just completely knocked down over the last 6 or 7 weeks? That's why I'm saying the staying power of guys like Brady, of course, and of course Rodgers. I mean, that means something. I mean, it's about consistency, right? It's not about just having a great last month of the season. You know what I'm saying? It's about
Mhm.
being the best from start to finish. And when you look at it, okay, Tom is I think he has 7 or 8 games of a PFF grade of over 80, which no other player has. He obviously still leads the league, despite as bad of a game as he had, certainly production wise. Pure raw numbers from against the Saints, he still leads the league in passing yards and touchdowns, which is obviously a big factor when it comes to uh, uh, the MVP award, on top of obviously team success, of which he has. So to me, it's just at the end of the day, I think a modest 3 games. I mean, he averages over 300 yards a game, which is 50 yards more than the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. That's a pretty significant number too. Like I understand everyone's, oh, look at the interceptions. This we've gone over this, John. If you want to hang on the interceptions number, then I'm going to talk about the actual total number of turnover worthy plays, of which Tom Brady, based on the numbers, protects the ball and it's surprisingly protects the ball better. But we're talking about the two best in the league at it, so the margin is
Aren't they
razor
tied
thin.
for that though? Aren't they tied for
technically, Brady is below 2%. He's at the bottom of the league. He's the only quarterback under 2% that isn't a guy that's thrown 25 passes. You know what I'm saying? So like Rodgers is technically over that 2% number because of the sheer number of times they've thrown the ball. So obviously, if they have the same number of turnover worthy plays, but Tom Brady throws the ball 100 times more, well, yeah, Tom's going to have a lower rate, which means he's, again, we're talking about,
and he's going to have more yards, and he's going to have more touchdowns too. So I mean, it works both ways, right?
No, it does and it doesn't, because at the same time, you just by virtue of throwing the ball, you don't, and we've gone over this before. There's only one quarterback in the league that wins consistently when throwing more than 40 times a game, and it's Tom Brady, and by a wide margin. So just by sheer volume, and this goes to kind of like my my argument against the 5,000 yard passing season for a team that went 7-9. Because again, I think that is more about just sheer volume. You don't just go out and just by virtue of throwing the ball 40 times accumulate 300 some odd yards. I mean, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks huck the ball 40 times and not come close to that. So to me, it's not necessarily. I mean, that's part of it. Like you have to be able, if you're throwing at such a high volume and keeping your turnover rate at such a low level, I don't care about how many times you throw. That's kind of like my point when it comes to MVP. Like no team in this league relies on the arm of their quarterback more than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on top of that, there's enough data now based on what we've seen, how these teams have shaked out, how their defenses have shaked out. And this was actually kind of a little not surprising, but maybe it was just more of a. It was nice to kind of reaffirm this. So Tom collectively has gone up against some of the best pass defenses this entire league. Him and surprisingly, Patrick Mahomes isn't too much further down the list than him. I think Zach Wilson, of all people, it's probably by virtue of playing the Patriots and the Bills twice this season, or having had.
Plus, you can't face your own defense. That kind of factors in
of
too.
course.
And I'm not even trying to be facetious with that. It's true. I mean, Zach Wilson
course.
doesn't get to face the Jets twice.
Exactly.
Which is would be beneficial to face them.
And the point being is, like, there's Zach Wilson, there's I think Justin Herbert, and this is a kudos to your guy Justin Herbert, who's also faced some really tough pass defenses, and then there's Tom Brady. They're in this you get the fault line essentially, where you're either performing against defenses that are performing above the average, which is what this graphic is, or you're going up against a collection of defense below the average. You know who's near the bottom? And I'm not saying this just to you know.
Oh, I'm going to guess it's Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't be talking about this. Okay, but
And look, and it's not. I'm not. Again, I just want to clarify, John. I'm not trying to sit there. I'm not being Uncle Skip here and trying to pinpoint.
Yes, you are. Come on.
No, but I
Come
mean, when
on.
a race this razor thin, yeah, this stuff gets brought up. Just like I said before.
I
Number
don't
of
think
drops.
it'd be brought up by the voters. I mean,
No,
they're gonna go
I think no. This is about the big picture, though, John. It's not just about. I mean,
Okay.
do you really think voters are like, oh, touchdown to interception ratio? That's it. That's all I care about. No.
No, but I don't know how much. Look, there's 50 voters, so probably there's 20 that really take it seriously. There's probably 15 that take it. 15 that go, oh, that's right, I got an MVP vote. Let me think about it over a cup of coffee. And you know what this is going to come down to? I think this is what it's going to come down to, because we go back and forth with touchdown interception ratio and all sorts of fancy graphs and who they played when they play them. I think whoever the number one seed in the NFC, if it's Brady or Rodgers, will be the MVP. I think it's going to come down to that.
See, I don't think
that could
it's
be
as
the
simple
ultimate
as that.
tiebreaker.
I don't think it's as simple
But
as that.
Is winning important?
Yeah,
no,
sure it is. But if Tom Brady finishes with over 1,000 yards or nearly 1,000 yards more, with 8-9 more touchdowns, which he's on pace to do right now, with again throwing the ball more and having to deal with. I mean, this is the funny thing, and this is what I've seen a lot over the
Please
last
don't bring
week.
up that having to deal with, because Rodgers hasn't had his entire offensive line this year. He played a game in Arizona with no wide receivers.
Yeah, but his offensive line is still at the top when it comes to like all these metrics. So the reason I bring this up is because all we've heard, especially after this Sunday, well, Aaron Rodgers went in without his top 3 receivers and beat a Cardinals team. No, he did it without Devontae Adams. You know who his top 3 receivers are outside of Devontae Adams? A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and Randall Cobb. Yeah. All three of those guys played in that game.
Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
No, I'm talking about right now. Right now, his top 4 receivers in terms of receptions are those 3 players and Devontae Adams. So all we've heard over the last 3 or 4 days, oh, Aaron Rodgers, he went into to the Cardinals and beat him without his top 3 receivers, and Tom Brady can't even. That's what we're hearing from a national.
No, we're going to find out the next 3. We're going to hear the next 3 weeks what Brady does without his weapons. Absolutely.
Well, it's not even about. I'm pointing out.
Never the same.
No, I'm pointing out how people will blatantly misrepresent information to try to prove the point for Aaron Rodgers. That's my point. Oh, he throws the fewest interceptions. Again, if we're gonna go into this race and it's gonna come down to how many interceptions one player has thrown versus the other, well, no, that's not really legit, because based on what I said, there's more to it. So I think the race is so close that we are going to end up having to nitpick. But again, this idea that somehow Tom has completely fallen out of the race because people are.
Well, the betting sites don't say that. So, I mean, if you want to follow 22 people on Twitter that are Aaron Rodgers fans who are going to push back against Tom Brady, so be it. I'm sure there's Brady people out there that are pushing back in the other direction. I mean, I think you're going to get that with 2 great quarterbacks.
But then I also see Dan Orlovsky get up on national television and with a straight face tell everyone that Jonathan Taylor's the MVP. And then I'm sitting here trying
I don't buy into that.
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, now I have to defend Aaron Rodgers. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I can't handle this emotional back and forth. Like,
Jonathan Taylor's averaging 108 yards rushing per game, which is damn good. It really is. But I mean, if we're going to put it up against historical seasons, we're talking about O.J. Simpson averaged nearly 150 yards per game. I know it's probably sacrilegious to bring his name up, but in 1973, he had 2,003 yards in a 14-game season. That's like 143 yards per game. Jonathan Taylor's, first team All-Pro running back. Absolutely. Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams are probably your first team All-Pro wide receivers. No, the MVP award is the 2 quarterbacks. I don't even know who the third person would be. If anyone 6. I mean, whereas Tampa's 10-4 and Green Bay's 11-3, I think that factors into the MVP as well. You generally don't see a guy, coming from a team that's just a little bit above 500 winning an MVP in a league. But this is somewhat reminiscent of the NBA though. And look, LeBron should have more than 4 MVPs, and Brady should have more than 3 MVPs. And there's always this kind of like those two guys because they've been around for like ever. Like, I mean, James Harden won an MVP over LeBron, which he did deserve. LeBron deserved it. I think 2 years ago when Giannis won it, LeBron deserved the MVP. But it's almost like, yeah, they've been decorated enough. Let's give it to someone else. And that's probably some of the narrative against Brady. It's just true. But as a Brady guy, don't you want him to not win the MVP because that means it's better that he wins the Super Bowl? Because we know it hasn't happened since 1999. Right?
That's fine. That means we're due. That means we're due.
Okay.
See,
I see
that's
that.
the thing. I'm not going to run away from any challenge. Okay, like I see that. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I don't want him to win it because I want him to win the Super Bowl. No, I want him to win the MVP, and then I want him to go out and win the Super Bowl. And that's exactly what I want to do. And I actually accidentally just hung up on John, so you're going to have to bear with us while we get him back here. That was a mistake on my part, but I think we have him now. John, you back?
I'm back.
Okay,
I'm
good.
back.
It was actually kind of good because your audio cut out. You're only coming into one headphone, so it was good that I hung up on you and called you back. So, yeah, I want him to go out, win an MVP, and win the Super Bowl. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, if he ends up not winning and then winning Super Bowl, I'm not going to care. But I'm not going to sit there and vote or root against him not to win it. So. No, look, it's going to be interesting. I don't think the actual voters are going to be as, like I said, to start this conversation off, I don't think they're going to be as, week to week and as, as up and down as some of, again, not just fans, but some of these other sites and people that are, in the media that, again, I get it. Trying to get a reaction, you have to have something to talk about. Hell, we're talking about it right now. But, at a certain point, it's just like, to your point, it's like, look, on top of everything, running back versus the value of a quarterback, I've already gone over. But at the end of the day, Indy's only 8-6. I mean, like they're having a fine season. I'm not taking anything away from them, but they're going to barely finish above 500. You know what I'm saying? Assuming they don't win out the rest of their games, and maybe they do. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. But even at the end of the day,
call it 10-7. If they go 10-7, that's a good season.
That's a good
after
season.
A really slow start. After a slow start, give them a lot of credit, but that's not MVP. MVP to me is, the quarterback leading his team to a 14-3 or 13-4 record.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, just being there, like every week, like you can completely take a guy like Jonathan Taylor out of the game, and yeah, it's going to impact the Colts, but it's not going to impact the Colts as if you were to take Rodgers or Brady away from their respective teams. I mean, look. I think, based on the nearly 2 years worth of what I've seen from the Buccaneers, I'm going to go with my gut and say that they would have been a 5 or 6 win team, just like they had been their entire past 15 years outside of like a blip here and there, based on just how undisciplined they are. Kind of just like this. Look, the defense has been banged up all season, so I don't want to knock them too much for that, but they've been, off and on, hot and cold. They've had moments where they look like this unstoppable force where it's like, wow, how do you stop all these rushers? And then Taylor Heineke just tears them apart on the field. You know what I mean? Like it's so mind-boggling. And then, the worst part is the undisciplined nature of it, the stupid penalties, the self-inflicted wounds. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, if this team had anyone but Tom Brady right now, they'd be exactly what they've been for their entire existence. The worst percentage franchise of all time.
It'd be like someone going to the Clippers and leading them to a title. I mean, that's pretty much the comparison in the NBA, which never happened.
No, and look, I mean, that's a tough deal. But at the end of the day, like you don't hear like people out there making. I don't want to say excuses, but talking about the weapons or whatever being injured. Like it's unfortunate. It is what it is. Certainly, like I said, I'll push back in the, like I said, with the Aaron Rodgers comparison where people will be very, very obtuse and deliberate and basically ignore what I said earlier. But, at the end of the day, you have to perform, and he just didn't perform well. I mean, he had a it's not as bad as people want to say it is. Like, I saw people saying out there saying like, his tablet throw was his best throw of the night. That's not true. I mean, he was their best offensive player, but at the end of the day, they lost 9-0. So I can't sit here and say he had an okay game. No, like he and Aaron Rodgers, they both had bad games against a really good
Mhm.
defense. Outside of that, you know what I mean? Like, you want to nitpick? Yeah, sure, we're gonna have to because of the race. But at the end of the day, still think it's Tom. I think, given the fact that, like you mentioned, the Jets and twice against the Panthers, I think he's going to. I think he's going to have plenty of opportunity to really just kind of hammer this award home over the next few weeks. So I'm not too concerned in that sense. And on top of that, like I said, I mean, he's still going at this from the advantage of having the most yards and touchdowns in the league. Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's certainly going to be a very stress-induced play-by-play watch for both of us. Because again, obviously, our rooting interests in terms of each of these guys getting the award is obviously three. Kyle, he asked me how many times Tom Brady's been shut out in his career. Three. And despite the graphic that has been making the rounds, and I'm popping this up on the screen here, so I'm not just talking to myself. The graphic that's been popped up, and this is what drives me nuts, John. Did you see this from CBS Sports? Tom Brady has been shut out 3 times. Drew Brees and Peyton Manning have never, in all caps, never been shut out in their career. Did you see that?
No, but now I'm finding out about it. And to me, that's like, okay, Barry Bonds went 0 for
Well,
4 in a baseball game.
it gets
That's
worse.
like not a big deal. I
It
mean,
gets a lot worse. The Colts lost 41-0 in a playoff game.
right. I remember that against the
Yeah,
Jets in
exactly.
2002. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't count.
So
Yeah.
no, well, that's my point. Like, we have people, like, I'm sitting there scratching my head. We do this all the time for especially when Breeze was breaking those records, where they'd say, "Oh, this is no one's ever thrown this many yards in the history of the NFL." Well, you should say the regular season, because what you're saying is technically not true, because I'll sit there and go and talk about Tom, obviously, postseason and regular season combined. I mean, he's been the lead. He's been the leader in both of those categories for a long time. Like, he's pushing. There's a potential that he could reach 100,000 yards in his career combined. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the only guy to throw more than 700 combined touchdowns. But
But
the way people do these records, they split regular season and postseason. Which, look,
that's the way every sport does it, though. I mean, every sport
that's
does
fine.
it. It's
That's
regular season
fine.
and postseason.
That's fine.
That's always been the norm.
That's
Like Barry
fine.
Bonds has 762 career home runs. They didn't add in his dozen postseason.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But
Why would change you get for Brady and Belichick, apparently?
well, no. The point is, okay. It's not about because I completely lost my train of thought here. I'm trying to talk over you, John. Jesus. No, the point is like, misleading stat. I mean, you're a professional organization. Like, if you're
Mhm.
gonna if like, I understand that regular and postseason have always been separated in all sports. That's fine. When you say most career whatever or has never happened, make sure you write
Right.
regular season, because now
Regular
knuckleheads
season,
are out there
exactly.
saying like, "Oh, Peyton Manning's my goal, 5 MVPs and never been shut out." Well, guess what? He did get shut out, and then he lost his Super Bowl by what, 35 points. So, like,
Yeah,
it's
43 to 8. Yeah.
exactly. So, and look, I mean, at the end
Oh
of the
no,
day,
that's ludicrous. That's
well, it's
ludicrous. I
like,
mean, it's regular season. They should specify regular season that he's never been shown in regular season. Which do we want to throw a parade because Peyton Manning and Drew Brees have never been shut out, which is it's nice, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
but
it's like, it's great.
and
Well,
it's great.
I
A
always
loss
find
to
it.
me is a loss if
Well,
you lose.
the ironic
whatever.
the ironic thing is, and we see it all the time, where it's like, wins aren't a quarterback stat, but then they'll turn around and be like, well, Tom Brady lost to Trevor Simeon, and so I'm like, wait a minute. So
Right.
wins are back to being a quarterback stat, or like,
Right.
I can't remember exactly what it was, talking about Aaron Rodgers the other day. It was either a fan or someone, and their retort was basically it was something about winning or losing or whatever. And I'm sitting here, it's like, you don't want what do the kids say? You don't want this smoke, okay? You don't want to start
Mhm.
actually bringing wins into it because again, I obviously very firmly believe that wins are a very legitimate quarterback stat, um, and that's why I think the all time discussion between these two is just so laughable that I entertain it because it's part of the daily discourse that we have to go through. But at the end of the day, it's selective from their end, where it's like, um, this counts here. This win is matters here for Aaron Rodgers, but with Tom Brady, oh, it's a team stat. The reason they say that is because if they admit or accept that wins, and this is what's so funny, like Packers fans will sit here and claim that quarterbacks only have like, and I saw this yesterday, a 15% impact on the game, and I'm like, that's stupid.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The links in which they will go to downplay the importance of a quarterback, and then in the same breath prop up Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, wait a minute. So again, like I said, wins count for him, but not for Brady. When he loses, it's the failure of the defense. But when Brady loses, it's obviously him being washed or whatever, and vice versa. It's like this really weird like inconsistency because like I said, at the end of the day, if Packers fans around the world just was like, yeah, quarterback wins our stat, we'd never have this all-time conversation with them. And that's where we're at. Like they will never admit or never accept that wins are a very legitimate quarterback stat and makes a lot of sense. Are they perfect? No. But you can't just sit there and tell me that it's just pure coincidence that these players win more than anyone else. It's not just a
Right.
matter of situation. It's just not like we see this the opposite too. Like I think a lot of young quarterbacks get a lot of passes early on because of their perceived bad situation. That doesn't mean they're not in a bad situation. I
Mhm.
just think, again, it's easy to just chalk it up to, oh, well, the coach this or the coach that. Well, no. I mean, there's some validity to that, but there's far too much put into that. Whereas I think at the end of the day, you're either capable or you're not. Like if you're let's put it this way, John. If you're so fragile minded of a quarterback that just your situation prevents you from reaching your potential, then you're not going to be an all-time great quarterback because that tells me you don't have the mental acuity, you don't have the mental ability that it takes to be an all-time great quarterback, someone who can forget something 30 seconds after it happened because it's necessary to move on. So to me, when I hear about quarterbacks who like, Trevor Lawrence, I still think has a lot of talent, but he's had an awful season. And I'm not just going to sit there and say, oh, it was just because, it was dysfunction with the coaches. No, like part of that is him. Like you have to elevate yourself over that. You're the
Mhm.
quarterback. You're supposed to be this all-time, legendary quarterback. And I don't even care necessarily about winning and losing per se, especially when you're a young quarterback. You can overcome that. But like his performance on the field, what do you go 5, 6 games without a touchdown? He's thrown
Mhm.
under 10. I mean, he's supposed to be. He was a guy that was talked about for what years about being the next, next great thing. So yeah, I think sometimes too much, like I said,
Look, well,
too much slack is given to some of these young quarterbacks. When at the end of the day, it's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, no, they, like you look back to Peyton Manning's rookie year, and I think the Colts were 3-13, and he set a record for most interceptions by a rookie. He also set the record for most touchdown passes by a rookie. I mean, he was damn good his rookie
Mhm.
year. He had a lot of issues. He wasn't, a finished product, but at least he battled through, and I think he threw as many touchdowns as interceptions, or they were really close. I think it was 28-26 or 26-28. So I give him a lot of credit. Look at Andrew Luck. I mean, he
Mhm.
went to a 2-14 Colts
Exactly.
team, and they went 11-5. I mean, 3 straight
That's
years.
a
I mean, that's
generational
that
talent
that's a
right
guy who
there.
could actually right. That's a guy who could say, Jesus, I had his offensive line was putrid. He was, playing in a division where Houston was pretty good back then. Remember, I mean,
Yeah.
that was a team that's the year they came into Gillette with the Letterman jackets.
Yeah. And
So I mean,
Jacksonville
it wasn't
wasn't
like a terrible
that
division. It
terrible
wasn't
either.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And here's, Andrew Luck to me was a guy who was on the path to being a great quarterback. He just it wasn't his first love. I mean,
Yeah.
that's apparent. I mean, if Andrew Luck had had the, I won't even call it intangibles because the kid was tough and smart and he was a gamer and all that stuff. But if he had like the the incredible love for the game like Brady has. You know, he would
Yeah.
have been an all-time great quarterback without question because the tools were there. But yeah, give him credit for that. He plowed through, right, and won 11 games.
And that's the thing. To me, he's an example of a generational quarterback.
Yeah. Elway is as well.
Yeah,
I mean, Elway with
and like, but we hear about every like, and Kyle brings up a great point because Baker Mayfield broke the rookie touchdown record, but again, I don't think any of us look at him as a generation. We look at Andrew Luck, maybe more so in hindsight now because we see, and this kind of goes into my point of like, I think sometimes these young quarterbacks get far too much slack when, you know, and sometimes teams make the mistake in holding on to him too long to say like, oh, I mean, Jesus, if half the teams in the league had their way, I mean, Josh Rosen would still be screwing up for the Cardinals. But give credit where credit's due. They realize like, look, he's just not the guy. And very clearly, I mean, it seems like he is not a NFL caliber quarterback, and a lot of that has to do mentally. Like, I mean, you can come in and if you get crushed, and it's like, all right, well, I put a lot of value in the head when it comes to quarterback play.
I mean, we saw Draft Day, right? We saw the movie Draft Day. The quarterback with all the talent in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of scares me a little bit about Trevor Lawrence. Not that I don't think his teammates like him. I think seems like a really good kid. But I keep bringing up that episode in training camp where he's at a press conference outdoors and there's a fly around his head and it just totally distracted him. I'm like, if he gets distracted at a press conference because there's a fly around his head, what the hell is going to happen when Aaron Donald is down near his knees in the middle of a game? Those are great points, Ian, and because we both agree that the quarterback position, you know, 50% of it is from the neck up. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'd
even put more. I mean, if you want to say like from like the from like maybe the breast, from the heart,
the breast. I'm going to just say the same to the heart up. Yeah, the heart up
is like 95% of it, right? Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, the arm is great, but Jay Cutler had a great arm, right? And
to me, it's about
Jeff George had a great arm. Yeah. But they didn't have the other things that the great quarterbacks have.
Accuracy and strength, and not necessarily like power, but like you don't have to throw the ball 90 yards because, well, the football field's only 100. So like this idea that, he can throw it 80 yards in the air. Well, great. I mean, how often are you going to be hucking the ball from your own 20-yard line to try to hit an end zone? Well, it doesn't happen often.
Let's hope not. Yeah.
So exactly. So I don't really care if he can throw 80 yards. All I care about is accuracy and decision making. And beyond that, like I said, you can sharpen your skills beyond that. I don't think you can learn accuracy, and I don't think you can learn patience and the mental aspect of it. I think you can refine it. I think you can strengthen it, but you either have it or you don't. And again, I think we see, and with some quarterbacks early on, we see very early on that they don't have that. So, all right, folks, sorry, we're going to have to cut this great discussion just a little bit early. I got to run out, have some obligations to attend to, but I did want to make sure that we got this little discussion in. So we will be back tomorrow. We're going to try to figure out the breakdown what's going to be happening over the next few days, give our picks for the handful of games, get ready for, of course, Festivus tomorrow as well. So everyone, have a great day.